Last year, the United States put a tariff on a crop it cannot grow. Coffee. You can't farm it in the mainland US, not at any real scale. But Americans drink about 400 million cups of it every day. And roughly 1 in 3 of those beans is Brazilian. So Washington taxed the bean. The price jumped almost 20%, and then, quietly, it backed off. But the tariff isn't the real story. The real story is this. Brazil grows the coffee, and still doesn't own the cup. Let me show you how lopsided this is. Brazil is the largest coffee producer on earth. It has been for over a century. Brazil and Vietnam together grow more than half the world's coffee. Brazil alone is about a third of it. Last year, it pulled in a record $15.5 billion exporting the stuff. Now, flip to the other side of the cup. The United States is the second biggest coffee importer in the world. And it grows almost none of its own. The only place with real commercial production is Hawaii. Kona coffee, beautiful, expensive, and less than 1% of what Americans drink. Coffee needs the tropics, the bean belt. Brazil sits right in it. So America's a nation of coffee addicts that can't grow a commercial crop of it at home. Here's where it gets interesting and a little brutal. Follow a single bean. On a farm in Minas Gerais, that bean is worth pennies. It crosses an ocean as raw green coffee, the cheap commodity. Then someone roasts it, bags it, brands it, puts it behind a counter. And it becomes a $5 or $6 cup. Want to guess how much of that price the farmer who grew it keeps? About 10%. The green bean is maybe 10 to 30% of the cost. The rest, the roast, the brand, the rent, the latte, that's where the money lives. And almost all of that value gets added after the coffee leaves Brazil. If you saw my videos on niobium or on JBS, you know this pattern. Having the raw material is not the same as owning the product. Brazil grows a third of the world's coffee, and it captures a sliver of what the world pays for it. Now, was this just luck? Great soil, good weather? No. And this is the part nobody outside Brazil tells you. Brazil's grip on coffee was engineered by the state for over 100 years. Go back to 1906. Brazil already grew about 80% of the world's coffee. There was too much of it. Prices were about to collapse. So the governments of São Paulo, Minas, and Rio did something audacious. They borrowed money from abroad, bought up the surplus coffee, and locked it in warehouses. Hold the supply off the market, hold the price up. It was called valorization. In the 1930s, they went further. They literally burned millions of sacks of coffee. Burned it to keep the world price from falling. That's not a free market. That's a country running a global commodity the way a central bank runs money. Decades later came the science. Opening the Cerrado, breeding tropical beans. Same playbook as the farm episode, patient state power, building an export weapon. But here's the catch that ties the whole thing together. The state secured the volume. It never captured the margin. Which brings us back to 2025 and the tariff. It started at 10% on almost everything. Then in July, Washington stacked another 40% on Brazil specifically. Not over coffee, over politics, a fight about Brazil prosecuting a former president. Total, up to 50% on Brazilian coffee. Think about what that actually means. You're taxing a crop your own country can't grow to punish a foreign government. There's no domestic coffee industry to protect. There's just the person buying a bag at the store. And they felt it. Coffee inflation ran almost 19%. Ground coffee hit nearly $10 a pound. Meanwhile, the Brazilian grower lost the American buyer. Germany quietly became Brazil's biggest customer instead. Both sides bled, nobody won. By November, the White House backed off and pulled the coffee tariff. But it kept one exception, instant coffee, Soluble coffee, the one part of the chain where Brazil adds real industrial value, stayed taxed. The barrier came down on the raw bean and stayed up on the finished product. So here's the thing to sit with. Brazil spent a century making sure it owned the world's coffee supply. And it does. 1 in 3 cups starts here. But the cup, the brand, the roast, the $6 latte still belongs to someone else. You can grow the bean, run the whole world's supply of it, and still not own the cup. That's the difference between having a resource and owning a product. And it might be the most Brazilian story there is. I'll keep pulling this thread from the inside. See you in the next one.